Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 10 of Sharing My Life. I can't believe it. And today I want to share with you all two really sweet stories about my son, Damien, where he taught me about, communication and power. And what I mean by that is parental power. So before I go any further, I want to actually say what I believe about, as the moment we actually step into being parents, by default, we step into positions of leadership and power and parental power, and when it comes to our children. And through my own journey as a parent, what I've discovered is that very often I've actually misused that power that I have by default. And one of the ways I've misused it is I've screamed at my kids, when they've done something wrong, or I want them to do something that they're not listening, and I want them to do something fast. I want that response from them quickly. I've screamed at them, or I've raised my voice. I've spoken a bit sternly. I've used their full name, Damien Vincent, come here, or whatever, and I know that if I had used that same kind of communication in my business as a boss with my employees, it would probably been considered as either intimidation or manipulation or even bullying, and I would definitely not have gotten away with it. And yet, as a parent, I've gotten away with it. And so how I came to this realization was about when Damien was about 10 years of age. He had just finished watching the movie Robin Hood. We had watched it together. And for those of you who haven't seen Robin Hood, there's this character Maid Marian whom Robin Hood is in love with. And then there's this King John, who's an absolute notorious king, and he carries on and screams at his subjects, and nobody likes him. He's really considered a really bad king. Anyway, I had just come home from somewhere, and I was in a bad mood, and the house was a bit of a mess. And as soon as I came home, I went to my room, put my bag down, and then I'm walking around the house, ranting and raving and saying, Damien was sitting in the lounge room and he was playing with his Xbox. He had just come home from school. And I'm walking around the house, picking up stuff, and I'm saying, Damien, this place is a goddamn mess. It's not fair that I've got to do everything. We both live in this house. I think it's high time you pull up your socks and share the responsibility with me. And of course, I was serious. I'm smiling now, but I wasn't smiling then. Pick up your clothes and put them in your room. Look at your room. It's such a mess. Take your cookies and your milk from the table and go and put them in the sink. Rah, 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 rah. And then I ended my rant with I'm not Maid Marian. And he was there still busy playing with his Xbox, quite cool. And he turns to me and he says, Mom, you may not be Maid Marian, but you're sure sounding like King John. And I just burst out laughing because it was true. It was funny. And he brought some lightness to the air. There was this tenseness with me screaming around. And I really got, in that moment that my screaming wasn't in my attempt to actually get him to tidy up the house. The message that I was really driving home to him was that if you scream loud enough in your life, or if you want something, just scream and you might get it. And one of my favorite quotes, is, what you do shouts so loudly that I cannot hear what you're saying. In other words, your actions speak far louder than your words. And what I was doing while I was carrying on running around the house was that message of scream and you'll get something was far louder than me, teaching him to keep our home clean. And that stayed with me, and I haven't screamed too much in my life, but last week, he really drove that message home for me even further, and it's going to have an impact for the rest of my life. And I'm going to cry as I say this because it's so beautiful. Our toilet, this is exactly 1 week ago, our toilet was leaking, and we had the flush tank. And if you didn't turn the tap off from the bottom, there would be this puddle in the toilet. And Damien said we had this agreement that when we go to the toilet, when we finish, we turn the tap off and only turn it on when you want to use the flush. So anyway, that particular Wednesday last week, I forgot to turn the tap off. So when he went to the toilet a bit later, there was this massive puddle in the toilet. And I was in my bedroom getting ready, and my door was locked. And he comes to my door and he knocks on it and he says, Mom. And I said, what's it? And he says, can I come in? And I said, no, I'm dressing. And I said, what do you want? And he says, Mom, you left the tap open in the toilet and there was this big puddle on the ground. Anyway, I've cleaned it up now, but in future, do you mind if you please turn the tap off? And there was this stony silence from me, because I suddenly realized his tone of how he was telling me. And he says to me, "Mom, are you okay?" And I said, yeah, I'm fine, son. I'm coming out. I said, "Thanks. I'm really sorry. I'll remember from now on." But what I got was that not just how amazing this kid was, 16 he is now, but how powerful his loving communication was, because it's left an impact on me for the rest of my life. Right through this whole week, when I've sometimes got a bit irritated with him, I remembered what he said, and my whole way of telling him what I need to tell him has become different. So his loving communication was far more powerful than my communication with it. If it was me and if roles were reversed and he had left the tap open, I would have probably said to him something like, "Damien, can you come over here, please, and clean up this thing? We did have an agreement, it's not fair that, I leave the toilet for you clean, and when I come here, it's all a big mess." I would have said something, there would have been a bit of sternness in my voice. And with him, there wasn't. There was just love in his communication, whereas in mine, there was driven still with my sternness. There was a bit of fear there. And so I just want to say that, I learn a lot more from my kids, and he taught me about communication and power even more, and I will always remember that now for the rest of my life. So his loving communication has a lifetime impact, whereas my fearful communication might have had a temporary impact on him. So thank you for listening. And let me say hello to who's over here. Nan. Hello, Nan, and Alyssa, and Beth, and Nikki, and Allison, and Deb. Hey, Deb, and Alex, and Anne. Oh my God. And Muni. So happy to see you. By the way, this is episode 10, so I'm really excited. I made it to 10. When I started episode 1, I wasn't quite sure how I was going to go with this, and I have no idea what I'm going to say next week, but I hope you'll join me. Thank you for listening, and thank you, hey, Muni, and thank you for just being over here. I want to say that one thing that I have done in my favor is that I've always allowed my kids to express themselves, to speak their minds. And that's probably why he was comfortable to say to me, "You may not be Maid Marian, but you're sure sounding like King John." So thank you for listening, and see you next week. Bye.